Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our daily word. It is Wednesday, December 9th of the year 2020. We are, of course, in the middle of our season of Advent. And a reminder that tonight at 7 o'clock, we will have our second Advent fireside chat. And that'll begin at 7. You can log in here on Facebook, or you can log in via Zoom. I sent out the Zoom login information in yesterday's email. And then when we're done here today, I'll post login information on our Facebook page about how you can log in to Zoom if you wish. Logging in by Zoom simply means that you can talk during our session. But last week, many people only logged in via Facebook Live, which is fine. And then you can comment on our Facebook Live, or you can text me and we'll talk about whatever it is. But tonight we're going to specifically talk about music. We're going to talk about the music of the angels as they proclaim the good news to the shepherds. And we're going to talk about our favorite songs, whether they be hymns or Advent hymns or Christmas hymns or secular songs. And I was thinking a lot about that this morning. There are many secular songs that I like that we're going to talk about, and I'll have my list, but we're just going to talk about that and importantly then how that then affects us in this season of Advent and how we use those songs to draw us closer to the coming of the presence of Christ. So we'll have some fun with that tonight. You can see behind me, I've already put flame to my candle this morning. I am not very mobile this morning. I'm in a lot of pain today, so I decided to light my candle ahead of time and have it up there so that I wouldn't have to stumble around in doing that this morning. So hoping my medicine kicks in soon. So join us tonight. But for this morning, I've chosen Luke chapter 2, verses 8 through 12. Now, these, as we go more and more into the season of Advent, these will be familiar scriptures to us. And they require us then, because of their familiarity, they require us to look a little deeper at them. So, and today, interestingly enough, I may have a count wrong here or there, but by my calculation, today is daily word number 190. So if you've hung in there for 190, I applaud you for putting up with me for that many times. 190. We have a long way to go. We're not going to stop anytime soon. So hear these words. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy to all people. Today, in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." And so this is one of the sentimental parts of the Christmas story. You know, we probably know this story well enough that we could ourselves, even if it wasn't perfect, we could recite bits and pieces of this story that, you know, just become a part of who we are. And they're sentimental parts of this story. They tug at our heartstrings. Sometimes it's easy for us to connect ourselves, if you will, to the shepherds who were living out in the fields nearby. And at night, they had to keep watch over their flocks for fear of wolves and any other predators along the way. And so there they were in the midst of this, keeping watch over their flocks. Now, I think we have to understand and realize that probably, most likely, without a doubt, these shepherds had heard the prophecy. These shepherds knew about the prophecy, the coming of the Messiah. They may not have been sure how it all was going to happen, but they had heard. So imagine, if you will, If you are one of these shepherds and you're out in your fields, and suddenly an angel of the Lord appears to you, and the glory of the Lord shone around them. I don't know about you, but I imagine that suddenly in the midst of the darkness, there's this bright light. And of course, we would be afraid as well. But the first thing the angel says to them is, do not be afraid. I love that. In the midst of the darkness, keeping watch over their flocks at night, this bright light shines upon them, and a voice comes to them from angels. Do not be afraid. I have to tell you, the initial reaction is to definitely be afraid. I relate this back, so many times in the Bible when Jesus appears, and we've talked about it when we light our candle, when he appears to the disciples after the resurrection and tells them to not be afraid. There's this ongoing theme about that. But the news is this: I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. Today, in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. And here's the sign: you'll find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger. Now, we know the rest of the story, right? The shepherds left their flocks and away they went. But it's interesting that the good news that comes to them in that field that night is about a baby. And it's hard to imagine a baby, even our own children. I remember when my kids were little babies, they changed my life in a drastic way, in a good way, in a drastic way. My grandsons changed my life in a good way, in a drastic way. But they only changed my life. The point of the story is that the Savior has been born to you, and you'll find this baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger. But the challenge for all of us in this season of Advent, and for the shepherds and for those who were there, is the waiting. Because through all of Jesus's life, we wait 30 years, if you will, for him to begin his ministry. But it's in these moments in this story, in the season of Advent, that we begin to feel ourselves being changed. That we know that God comes to us innocently enough as a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger. And it's the challenge for you, and it's the challenge for me, to open ourselves to the possibility that even the smallest things in this season of Advent, even the smallest conversation, even the lighting of a candle or the putting up of a Christmas tree, even tonight in the conversation around Christmas music and hymns and songs, even that smallest thing can convince us, if we slow down enough and we think about it enough, that God's presence comes to us not in some big explosive way. We are not like the shepherds. We don't get this big bright light in the middle of the night. Instead, the season of Advent and the story of Christmas comes to us in these small, quiet ways. And in that way, our lives are changed. Our lives are built up. If we pause, if we actually slow down and start thinking about it. I think about the shepherds, and you almost wonder, of course they knew the prophecy, but would you leave your flocks and go all the way to find a baby? It's an interesting question, but maybe it's the question we should ask. What is it in us that compels us, if you will, to be where we are, to open our hearts and minds just enough to know that the prophecy. In the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. And this will be a sign, you see. You'll find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger. Friends, the signs are all around us. The presence of Christ is all around us. The glory of God is all around us. The signs of God's presence are in you and in me and in those we encounter. The signs of God's presence are in the lighting of our Advent candles. The signs of God's presence are when we gather tonight in conversation. The signs of God's presence are how we treat each other. And in that, we find the presence of Christ in us. So the sentimental story really compels us to look deep inside of ourselves and to wonder if we would make the journey and if we would have the courage to look around at the presence of Christ, the signs that are in our midst. So may you know, and may you find, and may you be, and may you hear the voices of God and the signs around you today. May you know of God's presence deep and rich in your life. And like me, who, as I should, might we slow down enough and listen enough to hear the signs of Christ all around us. And if we do, we too, like the shepherds, might find our lives changed. So I bid you peace this day. I bid you God's love this day, and may it surround you. And may you know of my love for all of you. And I will look forward to seeing you tonight at 7 o'clock and then tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Have a great day.